Hello, this is Business Now, reaching you live from IBrandTV News Studios in Lagos, Nigeria. Coming up, U.S. inflation rate hits a fresh 40-year high after fuel prices soar. Senate receives a request from President Buhari to approve adjustments to the 2022 fiscal framework. Nigeria's crude oil production declines to an average of 1.354 million barrels per day. Experts say the current Russia-Ukraine war will trigger shocks in the manufacturing and agricultural sectors in the second quarter of 2022. Hello again, and thanks very much for joining us. I'm Michael Nath. We begin business now from China, where its overall trade with Russia rose over 12% in March from a year earlier, slowing from February, but still outpacing the growth in China's total imports and exports, as Beijing slammed Western sanctions on Russia following its invasion of Ukraine. Shipments to and fro Russia increased 12.76% in March to $11.67 billion. Chinese customs data showed on Wednesday, slowing from 25.7% growth in February when Russia launched its invasion. Still, the growth in March was faster than the 7.75% increase in China's trade with all countries and regions to $504.79 billion that month. Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th in a move that Moscow described as a special military operation designed to demilitarize and denazify its southern neighbor. Beijing has refused to call Russia's action an invasion and has repeatedly criticized what it says are illegal Western sanctions to punish Moscow. Now, global shares were little changed on Wednesday, pausing after a 6-day slump amid a mixed inflation picture, while supply concerns amid Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine helped push oil prices higher. A hawkish moves from the world's top central banks in response to inflation have weighed on equity markets since the start of 2022, with the MSCI World Index down around 10%. Data on Wednesday showed no let-up for Britain after inflation hit a 30-year high of 7%, although this came a day after a lower than expected U.S. print had given some traders cause to hope policy would begin to tighten more slowly. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry says the current Russia-Ukraine war will trigger shocks in the manufacturing and agricultural sectors in the second quarter of 2022. Michael Olawale Cole, President, LCCI, said this at the LCCI quarterly press conference on the state of Nigeria's economy on Tuesday in Lagos. Olawale Cole said the ongoing war triggered a positive oil price shock with spillover effects on operating costs, raw materials, and inflation in countries not directly engaged in the war. He noted that Nigeria was not an exception, as prices of goods and services were moving northwards, with the potential implication for shrinking production of goods and services. The LCCI president stressed that should the conditions persist, production volumes will be impacted by the raw materials supply chain disruptions, the rising costs of diesel, and other internal security crises. The Senate has received a request from President Muhammadu Buhari to approve adjustments to the 2022 fiscal framework. The request was contained in a letter dated April 5th, 2022. The letter was read during plenary by the Senate President Ahmad Lawan. Buhari in the letter explained that an adjustment to the 2022 fiscal framework became imperative in view of new developments in both the global and domestic economies. According to him, the developments were caused by spikes in the market price of crude oil, which were fallouts of the Russia-Ukraine war. He therefore requested the upper chamber to approve an increase in the oil benchmark by $11 per barrel from $62 per barrel to 73 per barrel. The president also sought a reduction in the projected oil production volume by 283,000 barrels per day from 1.883 million barrels per day to 1.600 million barrels per day. He also asked the chamber to approve an increase in the estimated provision for PMS subsidy for 2022 by $3.557 trillion from $442.72 billion to $4.00 trillion. Now, the House of Representatives on Tuesday approved the total sum of 369.136 billion naira budget for the Nigeria Customs Service for the year 2022 fiscal year. Now, the approval followed the consideration and adoption of the report of the Committee on Customs and Excise. Presenting the report, the committee chairman, Honorable Leke Abejide, noted that the total sum of the budget was in tandem with the projection in the medium-term expenditure framework approved by the National Assembly. He explained that out of the amount, 108.853 billion naira was for personnel costs, 445,896 billion naira was for overhead costs, and 214.294 billion naira was for capital projects of the service. In the budget, 7% cost of collection amounting to 151.845 billion naira, being the projected revenue available to the service, was approved, as well as 2% value-added tax share of 14.939 billion naira. The report stipulated that the NCS should also, as a matter of urgency, make provisions out of the 27.848 billion naira surplus for the repair of 13 scanners prior to the commencement of the proposed e-customs. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries has said that Nigeria's crude oil production declined to an average of 1.354 million barrels per day in March 2022. OPEC made this known in its oil market report for April 2022 on Tuesday in Lagos. The report said the figure showed a decrease of 24,000 barrels per day when compared to the 1.378 barrels per day produced averagely in the month of February 2022. According to secondary sources, total OPEC 13 crude oil production averaged 28.56 barrels per day in March 2022, higher by 57 month-on-month. Crude oil output increased mainly in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates, while production in Libya, Nigeria, and Congo declined. The report noted that following a contraction of 1.8% year-on-year in 2022 or 2020, Nigeria's economy expanded by 3.6% in 2021. It said this economic recovery was most likely to continue over the course of 2022 with support from improvements in the hydrocarbon sector and energy prices. Now, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva, on Tuesday said the April 2023 completion date for the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery was feasible and that the plant would refine 60,000 barrels of crude oil by early next year. Speaking on the state of repairs of the facility, which was projected to gallop 1.5 billion naira, the minister expressed satisfaction at the level of work so far. Silva stated that this while answering questions from newsmen shortly after tour of the Port Harcourt refinery companies in Eleme, Rivers State on Tuesday. He said, quote, "This project kicked off the second quarter last year, where the now is quite impressive. It is on schedule." The minister also vowed that the federal government would put an end to all forms of illegal oil bunkering going on in the Niger Delta, saying such criminal activities must not be legalized. Now, providing the right business environment for small and medium-scale businesses has been of more concern to business owners in Nigeria. While this agitation is yet to be given the right attention in Nigeria and other developing countries, Experts believe that entrepreneurship would effectively thrive at various levels if the government creates an enabling environment. We'll be bringing you an interview with an expert shortly after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back to watching Business Now on IBrandTV Lagos. Providing the right business environment for small and medium-scale businesses has been of more concern to business owners in Nigeria. While this agitation is yet to be given the right attention in Nigeria and other developing countries, experts believe that entrepreneurship would effectively thrive at various levels if the government creates an enabling environment. And now, I have with me via the phone Dr. Femi Ebeshola to have us discuss this very important issue. Thank you very much, Dr. Ebeshola, for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Now, small and medium-sized enterprises are engines of growth and development in any economy. And creating an enabling environment for these to thrive is very essential. Now, how well is the federal government doing in this regard?
Well, to be very frank with you, I would say that the federal government has performed below bar. The reason for this is that what you would use to measure the success or otherwise of any policy or government is the results you see. What are the results? What are the statistics that we have? Going by the result from NBS, that is Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, we discovered that lesser and lesser small businesses are in existence now, meaning that more small business owners are folding up year by year. And this is because the environment is not enabling. If government has done so well, we should be seeing more entrepreneurs coming on board rather than seeing lesser entrepreneurs coming on board. That's not far to say because everybody is aware of the very, very stiff economic situation in our country as it's today. Things are not in the favor of small and medium enterprises. And you will discover that for some years now, you hardly see any company that has been able to cross from small or medium to big. How many companies that are small or medium in the last 5-10 years are now the Dangotes, the Glow of this world, the MTNs of this world? You can hardly hear any because the growth is stunted because of the harsh economic environment that is not enabling at this point in time.
Now, what are the key areas to consider in creating an enabling or conducive environment for SMEs in Nigeria?
Well, the first thing is to make inflation go down. If inflation is down, you will discover that people will be able to have the power to purchase. And when they are able to have more power to purchase, they'll be able to buy more goods and procurable services. And that's when the business owners can thrive, when they can sell more of what they do, their goods and service. But this time around, the inflation is always on the high side, reducing the purchasing power of the public. As I speak today, the inflation rate is at the highest. We're talking about 16.5%. It's at the highest in the history of Nigeria for the past 15-20 years. That's not encouraging business at all. The exchange rate is part of those things that is contributing to inflation. The exchange rate goes on and on and on. Formerly, it was year to year, months, if not weeks to weeks. As I speak with you now, a dollar go for about 575 naira. That's the highest we have ever experienced. You also talk about the energy that we have. The electricity is not there, becoming more erratic day by day. SMEs, they depend more on power for whatever they do. And when the power is not available or is not consistent, it goes on to increase the cost of production, which at the end of the day makes it difficult for them to grow because they find it difficult to sell. Even diesel, that is the alternative source of power that we use to power our generator, we are having issues with it because the prices goes on higher and higher without even any information. You go to the market today, you buy diesel 500 naira per liter. The next day you get to the market, it's 550. As I speak with you now, it's between 650 and 700 naira per liter. What business, what credible business can you do with a bank loan as an SME and buy a diesel per liter 650, 700 and still be able to pay back your bank loan at the rate of 25 to 28% interest rates? That's almost very difficult. And that's why you see a lot of SMEs closing shops day by day. We also talk about government policies. Government policies are not even helping matters. You rely on some of these raw materials coming from overseas to do your production. When you get to the customs office today, they tell you that the excess has increased, the custom import rate has increased, everything is on the increase without checking, without considering the negative effect it will have on business. Even small agencies like the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, agencies like NAFDAC are not also helping matters. If you as a small business want to renew your products licenses, you will discover that you need to pay more than what you used to pay, and at the same time, so it takes longer time for the process to be complete before you have the certification. I have seen companies waiting for 3-6 months before they get their NAFDAC certificate, meaning that they have to down tool for that period until they are able to get a certificate. That's not encouraging business at all. Taxes are also on the high side, and it is also multiple. Everybody comes for taxes. You go from income tax to VAT to signage tax to this tax to that tax, and each and every now and then the prices of these taxes on the high side without prior information. Nobody informs you of anything. It just comes to you with a bill. You discover that what you are paying now is far higher than what you have paid last year, and nobody is ready to answer questions. Rather than that, what you see is that if you fail to pay as at when due, they begin to bring punitive measures to make sure that you don't even exist. When businesses don't exist, how the government also get revenue? These are some of the many myriads of challenges that we small and medium businesses are facing at this time.
We won't be fair to the federal government if we say it folded its arms all this while watching things go bad. So what are some of the notable policies and programs the government had put in place, to ensure the growth and development of SMEs, and how have these fared?
Well, we have some policies of government that has been on board to see to the growth of SMEs, but it has always been a drop in an ocean. Let me give you a few instances. We have intervention from government. We have intervention, for example, during the COVID-19 period. We have intervention from government as grants or as loans to SMEs. But you discover that, most of these funds go to people who are not actually business owners. While these funds are being transmitted, there's no strategy to determine if actually the beneficiary are actually SME or not. Secondly, the number targeted with those interventions are a far cry to the SMEs. For example, as of today we have about 47 million SMEs in Nigeria. So if the federal government is now providing an intervention that is going to affect just 500,000 SMEs, what's the percentage of 500,000 SMEs compared to 47 million? So if you are having an intervention that is affecting directly about 0.01% of SMEs, is as good as you have not done anything at all, no matter how good the intention is. Another thing is the JIP fund, whereby 50,000 conditional funds are being released. In today's Nigeria, what will 50,000 naira do for an average small and medium enterprise? And you discover that some of this money are going to the hands of political business owners, not real business owners. So these are the challenges we are having. We also have a situation whereby we have business clinics being organized by the federal government, whereby the fees of weeks in 1 year. You understand? And it means that government really needs to do more. Yes, there are interventions here and there. There are policies, there are programs to support SMEs here and there, but it is not enough. It needs to be strategically placed enough to be able to get one to the hands of the people who are really business owners, and in a quantity that will be able to affect positive changes in the life and growth of such businesses. One big thing we have been advertising and advocating over time is that when government want to do their program, it is always good to pass it through business membership organizations known as BMOs. We have business membership organizations for every business we have in Nigeria. Even people selling pepper have their own association. Galvanizers have their own association. Tailors have their own association. Industrialists have their own association. When government want to do intervention funds or other programs or policies to grow SMEs, it is wise to pass it through these business membership organizations such that it will get to the right and targeted audience instead of getting to others who are not real business owners and will just end up using those funds or grants to do other things outside business.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Femi Ebeshola, for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thought. You're still watching IBrandTV News Business Now. Still to come, European shares slip for third straight session. Details and more business news after this commercial break. Do stay with us.
Dry Cleaners Limited, professional dry cleaners, best in dry cleaning and laundry services that meets the needs of our consumers. Yeah, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Yeah, for clean wash and quick delivery. Yeah, Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. Swift Dry Cleaners Limited. For clean wash and quick delivery. Ooh.
Swift Dry Cleaners. Clean wash, quick delivery.
Welcome back to Business Now here on IBrandTV Lagos. Now to Africa's scene. TECH4DEV has disclosed plans to empower 5 million girls and women across Africa by 2030, with varying degrees of digital, deep tech and soft skills required within technology ecosystem, thereby aiding Africa's economic growth. TECH4DEV, a non-profit organization dedicated to creating access to decent work, entrepreneurship opportunities, and platforms for Africans through digital skills empowerment and advocacy, officially launched its Women Tech Stars initiative for the year 2023 last week, while also calling for applications for its Women Tech Stars Fellowship, a program within the Women Tech Stars initiative. The Women Tech Stars is an initiative of TECH4DEV aimed at bridging the digital and technology knowledge divide between men and women, as well as ensuring equal access to opportunities for all. The Agricultural Development Bank, ADB Bank, has continued its trend and profitability in the year 2021 after seeing its profit before tax rose by almost 30%. To hit Ghana cedis 126 million at the end of last year. A strong growth in the bank's net interest income and net fees and commission income, among others, contributed to its profitability last year. According to ADB Bank's audited statement of comprehensive income for the year ended December 31, 2021, its profit after tax increased by about 25% from the 65.4 million cedis recorded in 2020 to the 81.6 million cedis recorded last year. Net interest income jumped from 415.4 million cedis in 2020 to 480.3 million cedis in 2021, while net fees and commission income jumped from about 75.4 million cedis in 2020 to 91.2 million cedis in 2021. The growth of the bank's profits is, however, moderate when compared to the over 400% jump in the bank's profit before tax recorded in 2020. Foreign scene now, the U.S. inflation rate hit a fresh 40-year high in the year to March after fuel prices soared during the first full month of the Ukraine war. Consumer prices surged by 8.5%, the largest annual gain since December 1981, following a double-digit rise in energy prices. Last month, President Joe Biden banned all imports of oil and gas from Russia following the invasion of Ukraine. At the same time, U.S. fuel prices reached new records. The attack on Ukraine began on 24th February and triggered a wave of international sanctions against Russia, which is the world's second largest oil exporter. U.S. energy prices rose by 32% the year to March, according to the country's Labor Department. European shares slipped for a third straight session on Wednesday, as anxiety about elevated inflation and its potential impact on upcoming earnings season dampened the mood. The pan-European stocks 600 index fell 0.1%, with retail and travel and leisure stocks offsetting gains in oil and gas and mining shares. Investors' worries over rising interest rates in response to galloping inflation have roiled global markets. UK's FTSE 100 struggled as British inflation hit a 30-year high last month, while Wall Street's main indexes gave up early gains to close lower in the previous session as U.S. consumer prices in March rose to a four-decade high. Sri Lanka is suspending its repayment of foreign debt, including bonds and government-to-government borrowing, pending the completion of a loan structuring program with the International Monetary Fund to deal with the island nation's worst economic crisis in decades, the government announced on Tuesday. Sri Lanka, in its recent months, have endured fuel and food shortages and daily power outages. Most of those items are paid for in hard currency, but Sri Lanka is on the brink of bankruptcy, saddled with dwindling foreign reserves and $25 billion in foreign debt due to repayments over the next 5 years. Nearly $7 billion is due this year. The ministry said the IMF has assessed Sri Lanka's foreign debt as unsustainable and that staying current on foreign debt payments is no longer a realistic policy. In addition to seeking help from the IMF, the government has turned to India and China for help in dealing with shortages. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, Perpetua will come up with more stories. Stay with us.